Hello comrades, Comrade Connor here. In this video I shall be summarising what is the Marxist conception of class, for newcomers to leftist politics or just newcomers to Marxism specifically. Now, just to point out, the Marxist conception of class is nothing like the liberal capitalist view of class, which is a crude and arbitrary view, essentially being a social stereotype in a pay bracket. So for example, in the United Kingdom, a working class stereotype is a minimum wage earner or someone who earns nothing at all, who simply acts like a lout and wears a tracksuit all the time. Then they're working class. Such individuals are also often associated with crime and drugs. Upper class people are often seen here as millionaires and billionaires who are posh toffs, who are well-spoken men in suits, who are politicians and CEOs. So like I said, a stereotypical and childlike conception of class. Class, according to Marxists, however, could be essentially summarized as a group of people within society with the same relationship to the means of production and thus have the same material interests. For example, the two main classes in capitalism, so modern-day society, are the capitalists, whose relationship to the means of production is that they own said means of production, so they own workplaces such as factories or office buildings. Their material interests tend to be trying to survive and thrive off of owning those means of production, to live off the profit made by selling the produce that the workers make using said means, whilst keeping the material costs and wages as low as possible to maximize their profit. Whilst the workers' relationship to the means of production is that they own none of it, and that they must survive using their ability to work and labour, so their material interests are to get as much pay for as little work as possible so they can survive in capitalism. These opposing interests form the main contradiction in capitalism, with similar contradictions existing in all previous historical societies, where such a contradiction causes tension, struggle, and conflict between the major classes within each system, from simple protest to rioting and often ending towards the end of each system in revolution. There are often, however, non-major classes in a society who take lesser roles in each system and are not required for the system to exist. These can be the remnants of a previous system, such as peasants found in Russia and China up until and during their time under socialist rule, despite the fact the countries had been through, albeit briefly, stages of capitalism then socialism, or sometimes even remnants of the feudal lord class, such as the British royal family. Remnants such as these tend to be sidelined and eventually fade as they become politically and economically redundant and merge into other classes, in the latter's case, such as the capitalists. Other non-major classes would be the middle class in capitalism, also known as the petty bourgeois, which are a transitory or transient class. Transient classes such as these are merely a middle ground grouping of workers who are becoming capitalist or capitalists who are losing in their competition in the market and thus are becoming more like workers. Transient classes normally cease to exist once a mode of production or system has run its full course and is coming to an end, close to revolution. So by the end of capitalism, if it is allowed to run its full course, assuming revolution will come once the contradictions have reached an excruciatingly painful point, capitalism will eventually lose its middle class. Examples of petty bourgeois individuals would be small shop owners or a farmer that owns such an excess of land that they require hired farmhands. So even though they themselves do work the means of production to survive, they also live off the produce of workers. A good example of these would be the Russian kulaks. Individual classes can be subdivided into strata. For example, it could be said that amongst the workers, or proletariat, you can have the lumpenproletariat, or in some more modern terms, a precariat or underclass, who are essentially workers who are not able to live off work within capitalism and are struggling to survive. such as the homeless or severely underemployed, who are dependent on precarious work or sometimes even crime to survive. Rural proletariat, which would be an example of which would be farmhands, and others such as the industrial proletariat, so like factory workers, service proletariat, and then the labour aristocrats. Labour aristocrats being workers who have been bribed with power and luxury to become more inclined to support the capitalists. Examples of these could be managers or union leaders. Thank you for listening. There will be some relevant links below in the description, and if you've enjoyed this video or think you've learned something interesting, then please subscribe.